Imagine a CEO, one of the richest men in the city, standing frozen in front of a janitor holding an old mop. A room full of executives waiting. A proposal hanging in the air. And then, the janitor quietly whispers a response that silences everyone. If you play Chopin, I'll marry you. What happened next changed lives forever. Before I begin, if you love inspiring stories that touch the heart and open your mind, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more powerful tales every week. Now, let's dive in. The CEO of Bridgestone Enterprises, Mr. Daniel Hart, was the kind of man people both admired and feared. He had built an empire, driven by ambition and precision. He wore perfectly tailored suits, commanded respect, and lived in glass towers above the clouds. Yet, for all his wealth, there was something hollow in his life, something money could never fill. That emptiness became clear one autumn evening. The company had just finished a major deal, and the boardroom was glowing with celebration. Expensive wine poured, laughter echoed, and Daniel stood at the head of the table. But while his executives toasted, he stared out the window at the city lights, lost in thought. Down below, a faint sound drifted into his ears. A piano melody, soft, emotional, breathtaking. It floated up from the company's lobby. Daniel excused himself without explanation and walked down the long marble staircase. There, in the corner of the nearly empty lobby, sat a janitor, a man in faded overalls, polishing the floor with one hand while the other hand glided across the dusty keys of an old upright piano that nobody had touched in years. The melody was Chopin, Nocturne in E-flat major. Daniel froze. Memories came rushing back. His late mother used to play that same piece when he was a boy. Back when life felt safe. Back when laughter filled their little apartment before cancer stole her away. For the first time in years, tears threatened his eyes. Where did you learn to play like that? Daniel asked softly. The janitor stopped, surprised. He was a middle-aged man, gray streaks in his hair, hands rough from years of labor. His name tag read Louis. Louis gave a humble smile. I used to dream of being a pianist, studied for years, but dreams don't pay hospital bills. So here I am. Something cracked in Daniel's heart. He saw in Louis not just a janitor, but a man who carried his own silent burdens, unspoken sacrifices, and a past full of dreams left behind. The next morning, Daniel did something unthinkable. In front of his board of directors, he wheeled in the same dusty piano from the lobby. Today, he announced, I want to hear music in this room, not just profits. The executives exchanged confused glances. But Daniel wasn't speaking to them. He looked at Louis, who had been called up to clean the boardroom carpets. Play for us, Daniel said. Louis's face turned red. He shook his head. Sir, I can't. I haven't practiced in years. But Daniel insisted. The janitor sat down, his hands trembling as they hovered above the keys. He pressed down, and the music stumbled at first. But soon, Chopin returned, rich, aching and alive. The room fell silent. Executives who usually checked their watches leaned forward. Assistants stopped taking notes. Everyone listened. For the first time, the boardroom felt human. When the last note faded, Daniel stood and clapped. Then, without thinking, he spoke the words that stunned everyone. If you play Chopin again, I'll marry you. Laughter rippled across the room. Executives exchanged shocked whispers. They thought he was joking. But Daniel wasn't smiling. Louis looked at him, puzzled. Then he saw it, the raw vulnerability in Daniel's eyes. This wasn't about marriage in the literal sense. This was about commitment. About Daniel's desperate plea to reconnect with the humanity he had lost. Louis placed his hand gently on the piano. He gave a quiet, almost fatherly smile and whispered, Then you must first learn to play it yourself. The room went completely still. The CEO, the man who commanded millions, stood humbled before a janitor's challenge. From that day on, Daniel stayed late at the office, not for work, but to sit beside Louis at the old piano. His fingers stumbled, he cursed under his breath, but Louis was patient. Slowly, painfully, the CEO learned, and in those nights of practice, walls began to fall. Daniel learned not just notes and chords, but stories of Louis's life. How he gave up music school to care for his sick wife, how he worked endless hours to put his children through college. Daniel, in return, shared memories of his mother, his regrets, and the loneliness hidden behind skyscrapers and suits. It wasn't about music anymore. It was about rediscovering the heart behind every dream. Months later, at the company's annual gala, the grand ballroom glittered with chandeliers and diamonds. Guests expected another cold speech about profits. Instead, the CEO walked to the piano. He placed his hands on the keys and began to play Chopin's Nocturne. His fingers weren't perfect, but every note dripped with sincerity. The crowd listened, moved to silence. Some executives had tears in their eyes. When the piece ended, Daniel stood and pointed toward the back of the room, to Luis, wearing his janitor's uniform, standing quietly with a mop in hand. "This man," Daniel said, voice breaking, "taught me more about life, humility, and passion than all the money in the world ever could." The crowd erupted in applause. From that night on, Daniel made a promise. His company would fund scholarships for underprivileged musicians. Luis became the head of a new music foundation, mentoring young talent who had dreams like his. And as for Daniel, he never stopped playing. Because sometimes, a single melody can change not only one man's heart, but an entire world. And all it took was a janitor's courage to whisper, "Then you must first learn to play it yourself." If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that no dream is too small and no person is too ordinary to change a life, then take a moment to like this video and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that inspire hope and courage. Who knows? The next story might just change your life too.